Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Have you ever thought about whether the Dursleys were truly evil, or if the movies simply made them look that way? What if the truth about them was much more complicated, and they weren't the heartless monsters we've been led to believe? In today's video, you will find out what the films didn't show us about the Dursleys and why their story might deserve a second look. Throughout the Harry Potter series, few characters were as despised as the Dursleys. The ordinary Muggle family that raised Harry was portrayed as cruel, petty, and even abusive. Thanks to the movies, they stood alongside villains like Dolores Umbridge and Draco Malfoy, despite committing far fewer actual crimes. I won't say they were perfect, but maybe they weren't as bad as we thought. It's time to set the record straight and uncover their real story, the one that was mostly left out of the films. So, grab your favorite Muggle tea and let's dive in. The Dursleys before Harry Potter. Petunia Dursley was the older sister of Lily Potter, Harry's mother. As children, they were close, but everything changed when Lily was revealed to be a witch and accepted into Hogwarts. Petunia dreamed of joining her sister in the magical world, even writing to Dumbledore, begging for a chance to study magic. But she was a Muggle, and her wish was impossible. Over time, jealousy turned into resentment. She distanced herself from magic, left her childhood home, and married a man who shared her views. Vernon Dursley was an average Muggle, practical, ambitious, and deeply concerned with order and normalcy. He didn't just dislike magic, he feared and distrusted it. But he and Petunia still had to maintain some contact with Harry's parents. After all, they were family. At one fateful dinner, James Potter mocked Vernon for his mundane lifestyle, embarrassing him deeply. From that moment on, Vernon held a grudge, and unfortunately, he directed much of that resentment at Harry, who reminded him too much of his father. Their son, Dudley Dursley, grew up spoiled and entitled. Given everything he wanted and never disciplined, he became a bully. But as we'll see later, even Dudley wasn't beyond redemption. Why the Dursleys disliked Harry? Their mistreatment of Harry wasn't random. It had reasons, even if they weren't good ones. Petunia resented Harry because he represented everything she had once wished for, but could never have. He was a wizard, just like her sister. He was kind, intelligent, and strong, qualities that made her own son look worse in comparison. And perhaps deep down, she feared that his presence would bring danger to their home. Vernon disliked Harry because he was the spitting image of James Potter, the man who had humiliated him years ago. That bitterness never faded. And as for Dudley, he bullied Harry simply because he had never been taught otherwise. He was a child raised without boundaries, and hurting others made him feel powerful. Were the Dursleys truly evil? Despite everything, I wouldn't say they were outright villains. Here's why. The Dursleys tried to keep Harry away from the dangers of the magical world. When they desperately blocked his Hogwarts letters, maybe they weren't just being cruel. Maybe they genuinely thought they were protecting him from a world filled with dark wizards, Voldemort, and deadly spells. Over time, they showed moments of remorse. Petunia stopped Vernon from throwing Harry out after the Dementor attack. And in their final goodbye, she hesitated, as if she wanted to say something meaningful, but couldn't find the words. Even Dudley changed. He thanked Harry for saving him from the Dementors, and later, as an adult, kept in touch with him and Ginny. The Dursleys' story is one of fear, jealousy, and misunderstanding, but beneath it all there were glimpses of something more, moments that suggest they weren't entirely heartless. Take Petunia, for example. She spent years pretending magic didn't exist, yet she knew more about the wizarding world than she ever let on. She recognized the name Voldemort when Hagrid mentioned it. She knew about Dementors. She understood the significance of Hogwarts. It wasn't just passive knowledge. It was the knowledge of someone who had once desperately wanted to belong to that world. But she had been rejected, and instead of accepting that pain, she buried it. Pretending to hate magic was easier than admitting how much it had once meant to her. And then there was Vernon. If he truly despised Harry as much as he seemed to, why keep him in the house at all? Why not send him to an orphanage or refuse to take him in? The answer is simple. No matter how much he hated magic, no matter how much he resented James Potter, he still followed Petunia's lead. She was the one who insisted they take Harry in, and deep down Vernon understood that keeping the boy was a duty, even if he never saw it as a kindness. Dudley, on the other hand, took much longer to change. He was raised to believe he was special, better than everyone else. He was given everything, never disciplined, and always told he was the best. In his world, there was no reason to feel empathy for Harry. But something shifted after the Dementor attack. For the first time, Dudley experienced real fear, something he couldn't blame on Harry, something he couldn't bully his way out of. That moment opened his eyes just a little to the idea that the world was bigger than himself. By the time the Dursleys left Privet Drive for the last time, something had changed between them and Harry. There was no tearful farewell, no grand reconciliation, but there was something unspoken in the air. Dudley's simple "I don't think you're a waste of space" carried more weight than any elaborate apology ever could. It was the closest thing to an admission of guilt he had ever given. And though Petunia never said it out loud, the hesitation before she left spoke volumes. Maybe she wanted to say something to Harry, maybe even something kind, but she had spent so many years pushing those feelings down that the words never came. Years later, after the war was over and Harry had built a life of his own, there were whispers that he and Dudley reconnected. They would never be close, but there was an understanding between them. Dudley had grown up, had children of his own, and finally realized the mistakes of his parents. He didn't want his own kids to grow up with the same blind prejudice, the same selfish worldview. The Dursleys were never meant to be heroes, and they certainly weren't good people in the way that Harry's real family, the Weasleys, Sirius, Lupin, were. But they were human, they were flawed, broken, shaped by their own fears and insecurities. And in the end, maybe that's what makes their story worth telling. Because even the most unlikable characters, the ones we love to hate, might have a side we never got to see.